Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday, April the 4th. Uh, Boy, what a trading day. I tell you what, it was a tough one today, and as you can see, we just have a big trading range, and when I started today, I had this, um, after those first couple of swings, by the time I came in, that's where I started right there with the upper side, and I wasn't sure that it was a trading range. It really looked like we were going to go higher. Because this was pretty strong out of here, but then look how strong we sold off coming back. And, there's some channels in here. We've got kind of an upward sloping channel here. And then on the way back down, we have this down sloping channel, but they're hard to find. They really were. So really, most of your trading had to come off the lows or the highs of the range. And this later up here moved down to right across there, and you can see that. So that was really the only way to trade this. And notice that I don't have many entries. There's not very many good setups off the highs. Um, Notice all the big reversals and the great places to trade are off the lows. And so there's definitely more trades off the lows. And really I only had a few shorts. There was really a short right here. Um, and I probably should mark that one in green. And I think I will go ahead and just mark that one real quick. There was a short right there. There's a failed second entry long, but I didn't like it, and I'll explain it to you I'll just wait till we get to it before we talk about it. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it on there. And there's obviously some other trades in here that you could have taken that would have worked, that you might have considered for different reasons or whatever. But really, I'm trying to mark the ones that make sense, that follow the rules, and are not. It's when you get in here in the middle where it's kind of no man's land that you don't know what's going to happen, because it looks like you're going to go lower here, and then you go back up and test it, and then it looks like you're going to start working higher, and next thing you know you're working lower. But they're generally, by the end of the day, it's a lot easier to see where your highs and lows should have been, and you just have to keep moving it. And the last lows, the closes were right across there. um, so that's kind of where I would have had that at this point. We'll see what happens. But earlier this morning when I came in, right after I came in, that's where I would have had it. And that would have kept you. There's a failed second entry short here. It turns into a second entry long that was a great trade, but I was scared to take that right there after that huge move up and being that close to the highs. It still looked like a pretty strong trend, and I was really close to wanting to take that trade. You had to be quick to get in it too, but it took off really fast. So, needless to say, I missed that one. But let's just start with the first trade this morning, and hopefully you can see the channel we kind of had working up, but you can easily find it on the flat horizontal um, places too, and I'll show you at this point. This one was right here. That's the reason I like that second entry long right there. Um, but we'll talk about those when we get to them. I believe this is the bigger channel, and probably either up here. It may turn out to be down here. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll see where this move goes to. But first trade that I saw, and let me show you when I first came in, I had this little trend line right here, and we broke it, and we went higher, tried to go higher, and found resistance and turned down. And so then we're working our way down. And so it helps if you draw these short-term trend lines. And um, even though we got a trend line coming down, we've got a couple of legs down, and notice this is where the strong support was, and that's why I like this trade. Um, I probably should make this one green, but when we tested that area twice right there and went up, I just dropped an order in there, and it got filled, and it was a fairly easy scalp, and we continued to go higher. It was not real clear. I mean, with the trend that straight up and then one that straight down, and you're finding a double bottom here, it's probably better to wait on the second entry, but the second entry there was no good. You didn't really get another chance to enter on a decent entry on a second entry till here, because then you got a two-legged pullback, and guess what? You get just enough to scalp out of that. But by the time this trade sets up, the only clue you would have had to go along here was that you're making higher highs all the way up, and your highs are about the same. So it's kind of a wedge shape. So if you took that long right there, great setup. I wasn't brave enough to take it. I got in down here, and of course they came back and got my runner on that. And then I entered again here. They came back and got my runner on that. So I didn't catch this move up through here, and it makes me mad. But you just sometimes you don't want to risk. If you don't know what's going on, you can see how flat the EMA is right there. If you're not sure what's happening, the best bet is just to stay out. So I just stayed out, and then we were rallying higher. And, I was looking for a setup to go long here, and I had a nice bar right there, but notice it never triggered. Nothing ever triggered on the second entry coming up through here. You might have considered this a second entry, but that's a dangerous place to be going long. I didn't like that trade. I was waiting for a better correction, but then all of a sudden it's off to the races. And so I don't see any clear-cut way to enter that trade safely. Um, you might have noticed a double top and then a little lower high, but look at that bar. And that is a fairly bearish bar right there. So if your chart looked a little better, you might have found an entry to go short right there. And if you did, boy, what a trade. But I missed it up and I missed it down. Um, just nothing else I can say except I didn't know what was going on, so I wasn't about to enter. And I'd rather miss a trade. I'd rather miss both those moves than enter and not be sure and get burned, so to speak. So, but hopefully you can see that. And then we broke above, and we tried several times to come back and retest this low. And notice we made a higher low each time. And that's a signal that we could go higher, but it just wasn't a very good setup. Not good enough for me to take a chance of entering right there, and I missed that. And I got my runners on both of these longs right here. And again, I bought this one because you had a double bottom and you just retested it. You can see right to the tick, and your closes were right there. We went a little bit lower than bounced and turned up. And so that was a great place to think about entering. If nothing else, just to get the pull back to the EMA. And you might say, hey, that's a counter trend trade. But with a move that straight up and then one that straight down, um, with all that strong support right there, you were looking for, I was looking for some kind of bounce, and it is a little bit more aggressive. And then, of course, I drew my trend line off those two swings then, so I was ready for this one. But that's where I was kind of looking. Let me show you this right here. If you were still long on this, here's your first leg right there, and then you get your pullback, and look where you're, almost to the tick. You missed it by a tick maybe. And but I never really liked the setup to get short up here. And again, your setup might have looked a little better here. That's a fairly bearish bar after a failed second entry long, but we were still above the EMA, and then we made that little doji, and even if you got in below that, you might have got shaken out with all them dojis, and especially when that reversal bar formed there. So I missed that one, just plain and simple. But I found a trend line here too. If you draw it kind of right off those first few, you can see it right up through there. And that might have alerted you to that, but and it's there really off that side, but you got to break outside of it there, and you got to break outside of it there. So, I just didn't feel comfortable that I had that right. But after the fact, you can see there's definitely a little channel up through there, and fairly easy to see after the fact. But finding it, while it's happening sometimes is difficult. But, it's there, and, we broke below it, and I guess you could call that a break of the trend line, but that, I don't even know if I would see that there. It's just a channel on the way up, then we broke it, and then we headed back down. But it does help to draw these trend lines, and you see that one coming down through there, right through there, and we broke it, and we tried to come back for a little retest, and then we worked higher again. And you can kind of see this all the way across here. You got one kind of working up through right there. We broke it, and we came back for a retest, and you're off to the downside. And then guess what? You got one working down through probably right there. We broke it, made the retest, and now we're off to the upside. And guess what? Now you got one kind of working up to the upside right there, and we've had no break of it yet. So, it helps to draw these trend lines, and so you got to draw them. It really does help. And again, the reason I like this long right here was I had this line coming up, and that's right where we went to. And when I copied this and drug it up, it fit up here too. Um, so I was looking for it to come back down to here. And look at that reversal bar. What it did, it broke lower first and then turned up. So I had a stop order sitting right in front of that, just above this bar, because it broke out the low side and turned up. That's a good sign when it breaks through it on the same bar. And it was a quick, easy scalp and nothing more. And then it comes back, and then you get another reversal bar here with a second entry long. You get long right there. And this time, you actually get a runner on this one. So this was the first trade today that I actually got something positive going other than a scalp. And I almost let them shake me out of that because of that bar right there. It really scared me when it didn't go any higher, but that trade worked out. And notice how it gapped right there and took on off. So, of course, I didn't have this line on here at that point. I didn't get this line until we had this high right here, and then I drew it, and then you can see it kind of came into play. And then I drug it around down here trying to find where it fit, and it didn't look right there. So, I drug it down to here, and I was kind of looking for prices, but when we bounced right there, I pulled it back up, and you can see how we were bouncing. And there's actually an overnight, the close from yesterday is there, so we filled a gap on the close here too, after the 8:30 open. So that was another, um, kind of another positive right there, is that we had that overnight gap and we came back and tested it, and we bounced right off of it. But you can see that line coming into play right across there. We overshot it. Why this was so strong, something to do with some of that news this morning, and then we take off again, and there's also the Korean stuff going on. Just people are scared. The market's jittery right now. It doesn't take much to run it in any direction, really. And so, then that makes, the day traders jittery. And so nobody wants to risk hanging on. And you can tell that right there. They're just selling this thing. They were buying it all the way up and then selling it all the way down, just even faster coming down. But again, I like this trade right here because we were coming off this line, and that's on a bigger picture, that's a second entry long, but you actually got a little two-legged correction right there, and then a nice reversal bar, and so you can see that. And I was looking for it to come back up and test these highs across here or over here, and we didn't quite get there, so then you got to kind of move that one down. And a lot of times the closes, so when we came back here, there's just not a good setup. I was ready to go short right there, but when it didn't trigger, then I was scared of it. So then we come down and we pull back up, and you got that little bitty doji right there, and you got a bigger double top. So you figure you might get back down here, and you may even come back to this line, or you may even come back all the way to the lows again. And so I like that short right there. I felt like that was there's really two legs back on a smaller picture. And so that felt like a good entry. And there was a similar one over here this morning, right here. You can see that little double top and then right at the EMA. So it was kind of a repeat pattern. And it took off pretty quick. And guess what? Any runners would have been safe on this one, and you could have ridden it all the way down. I thought we were going to bounce here, and it looks like some other people got fooled. But that's why you wait on a good bar, too. That's not a good bar to go long above. And you can see some people, all they did was there's one of those little gaps right there. And people keep asking me, people can't see that. Let me make this pretty big so you can see it. But notice the bars don't overlap right there. That's a gap. That's what I'm talking about. And notice how on the next bar it ticked up and filled it and turned straight down. But I didn't like going short there because you had this trend line working up through here. And I really thought we were going to bounce and go higher again. But we got a lower high here on a double top than this high. And so guess where you're looking for this to go. Here's your first leg down, then you got your correction. And so guess where you're expecting this leg to go? Right here. And I bought this one because at that point my lows were right across here, and you can see that closing. We broke below it, we pulled back, we broke below it again and failed. And so I like that for a chance to get long off the lows. Easy scalp, but we didn't go any higher. They just weren't done taking it down yet. The target was down here. I didn't trust that target, but you can see that's exactly where it went to. And I actually took one more trade right here. Notice that we got a first entry short, then a double top, and then a little pullback. And I didn't like this trade because of all that overlap, but I was looking at this target. I was looking at the fact that, um, we had room to get out before we got down this line again. And it went through that line, and guess where it went? Right to the target. And then, of course, that created a long with another reversal bar right off the target, 2 legs down to, and this is a new low for the day too. At the time, it broke below the previous lows over here. It really didn't break below this, but it broke below the low of the last closes and reversed. And you had this line that I really liked down through here, and so nice long. And guess what? Any runners are safe off this trade, and you could still be going high. I didn't ride it all the way up. I exited right here on this break lower. Wish I'd have held on to it now, but I didn't. I was really through trading by that time and just had enough of it. So, um, you know, but that was the trades I saw. And this one I marked in green. I think I talked about it a minute ago. It came off the possible trend line. It's a failed second entry long. Um, but I didn't like it because it was so close right here. So, but you see it worked, and then it had the little gap and it pulled back and filled it. And but this is definitely a trading range day. Um, and you can see we're trying to go back to the upper side. Uh, it's really struggling now up here because, but it's getting late in the day. And I imagine a lot of traders are probably done like me. They're like, "Ooh, I can't take any more of this." It's just, it's a difficult day. And I got a lot of emails, people saying, "Hey, I can't figure out what's going on today." But all it is there's a range, and there's some channels, some larger channels within that range, but they're hard to find because we overshot them. Um, we overshot this bigger channel down here to the low side, and we overshot this channel to the low side. So, but all the best moves were coming off those lows. So it's really kind of an odd day. And, we did have this nice move here. And this is what really threw me. I was not expecting this at all. And, again, I really wasn't expecting, I didn't really think when this trade didn't go anywhere right here, I really was not even expecting this. I thought we were going to have possibly another trend day. So, um, you just don't know. And then suddenly you get this and it really throws you off. But that's why you draw these lines, because when they come back to meet them again, they come into play. And even right here, you could have got a scalp out of that. I wasn't about to take it because we're back inside this channel, and I figured we're going to bounce off this EMA. I didn't know if we would go all the way back up here or even higher than that, but after an overshoot twice down here, you got to expect that we're probably going to break out of here and go back up and test these highs or maybe even those highs. So just follow the trend line until you get your trend line stuff, and you can always kind of verify it. You see if it fits on the other side. And it kind of fits there. I don't know if that's it, or maybe that's probably going to be it right there. So if we shot straight up, that's going to get us up to here before it touches that. But you never know if it's going to do that. We could turn down right here and come back and test this again. I would suspect that we're going up to these, we're going higher here, but we just have to wait and see how it plays out. It's been a really crazy day, and notice we're making lower highs here, so we may make another lower high here, but we've gotten outside of this trend channel, and we may want to come back and test that, so that wouldn't surprise me either. So that's the reason I'm just, it's too, if you're not sure what's going on, that's when you want to stay out. But, anytime you're not sure, draw these short term, these really work on these bigger ranges because they're trends within the trading range and you can't ignore them. So draw your trend lines and you can see they pretty much, this is the only one I would say that, we didn't break below and come back and test it, but, maybe I don't have it quite right. That might be it right there. And then we broke it and came back and made a high. And we actually came back and tested it right there too. So, and that's drawing it really right off those first few swings there. So that may be um, more like it right there. And let's just want to play with it a little bit. Yeah, you can see that fits pretty good right there. So that may be more like it right there. And you can see we're bouncing off that all the way up. And then we got a little break here and new high, and we broke it again, and then came back and retested, and then off. So maybe that's it. But see, that throws you off because they're not easy ones to find. These later afternoons were much easier to find than these earlier morning ones. So but draw them because if you find them, they help you. And that's really about it today. There's not much else to say other than it's just a big trading range day, and it was a fairly difficult day that was hard to find entries, and there were some really good moves that I hate. I just can't really see. This one was a possibility right here because it's a second entry long, but if I'd had that trend line right there, I might have taken that, but I didn't see that at the point. I didn't necessarily see that at the time. So, and that's a lot of it is you got to see it. It was hard to find this one down on the low side until we bounced here. Then it made sense that we just kind of overshot it here, coming down to test this line. And that's why you can't buy these lines blindly. You really need to wait on the setup a lot of times because they overshoot, and sometimes they overshoot them by a good bit. And you can't risk an overshoot this big because it could have just kept on coming down to here, and you don't want to risk that much money, and it may not have ever come back that far. So um, just be aware of that. But I'm going to wrap it up. This is 22 minutes, and there's just not much else to say other than, hey, it was a difficult trading day. And so if you had trouble, don't sweat it because it was hard. I had a hard time today. Um, I know a lot of other people did because I've gotten lots of emails today, people saying, what in the heck is going on? I can't figure anything out. But just let me remind you, if another way you kind of get a clue here is look how prices were all below the EMA, all above, all below, all above, all below, and now all above. When you see that, that's your first clue. When you're on both sides, back and forth the EMA, it's a trading range. We just hadn't had a big one like this lately. We've been trending pretty well, but there were weeks when that's all we had every day, and they weren't as hard to see as this one, and the lows were more, usually your lows were easier to spot. And these really were, if you just kind of follow the previous lows, they're fairly easy to spot. And just same thing, follow the previous highs. And they're easier to notice then. They're hard to trust, but you got to trust the rules or you're going to have a difficult time, especially on a day like today. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.